I feel sad again when I hear people saying that scientists are playing God. And I feel sorry because it means that that group of people with that kind of ideology have very limited understanding about God and creation. Because God was the biggest of geneticists. Yeah. You can imagine how he genetically modified everything here. And so really just trivializing that fact that scientists could be playing God is showing just how much ignorance we are in terms of how genetics work.
Hey everybody, welcome to No Ideas Media. I'm Nick Syke, and it's going to be a busy summer around here. Not only on the agriculture side, I personally just have a lot of other stuff going on, weddings and other video projects and a multitude of other stuff. So in order to keep up with this week-by-week video release schedule, I am going to dip into my documentary footage. Many of you know that I got this start in this science communication thing because we were planning on doing a documentary about GMO food, which we actually did go out and film. We didn't get the money we needed for post-production, so it kind of stalled out a little bit. That being said, the footage is fantastic, the interviews are fantastic, and it's leading me to think that I'm going to start a new series of videos. Basically just the full-length interviews that I gathered for your viewing pleasure. Now I'm really looking for audience reaction on these. These are obviously going to be really long. I think this first one even passes 30 minutes. So I need to know what you think about these. Are they valuable to you? Do you like this kind of thing? If you're into this, I've got another, probably about 60 interviews in the can that I'm happy to release if you like them. We're going to start with my absolute favorite interview that I gathered while we were on the road in Africa filming with Dr. Margaret Karembu. Dr. Margaret Karembu is the director of ISAAA, AfriCenter. She also serves as the chair of the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology Programming Committee, Kenyatta Chapter. Dr. Karembu holds a PhD in Environmental Science Education and a master's degree in Education from Kenyatta University. She's extensively published and has authored and co-authored various books and papers and policy briefs. She has a really deep knowledge of the concept of biotechnology as it relates to Africa, as it relates to Eastern Africa. And again, this was just my favorite interview. This is one you'll want to share with somebody you know who needs to grasp the basics of the GMO thing. This would also be one you'd be really good to share with anybody who doesn't get why Africa needs access to biotechnology. And for those people you know who think organic is safer or more nutritious than conventional food, yeah, we get into that in this as well. Lastly, Margaret and I talk about Christianity as it relates to the idea of genetic modification and just science in general. As you saw in the opening clip, she makes some awesome points about the idea of playing God. Again, this is really my favorite interview ever, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. This is gonna be good. You've basically said in the exact same language, the exact same things that I've been saying in Canada as well about this problem. And the difference is that we've got really a very similar anti-biotech crowd in Canada. The difference is that in Canada, we grow a lot of biotech.
Oh yes, 11.6 million hectares in 2014
exactly
were grown on biotech crops in Canada.
Now, to have the capacity and then to be against it, well, that's making a personal choice, and I can give people the room to do that. If you want to eat organic in Canada, that's fine. The trouble is that I feel like a lot of the seeds of these ideas in Africa about what's bad about genetically modified food have come from North America. They've come from a place of have and to a place of have not. What are your thoughts on that?
Precisely. Actually, when you look at Africa's productivity and the food security situation and compare it with North America, compare it with Europe, Canada, we are way below what you'd call decent living, because we have so many of our people still suffering from inadequate food, food that spoils quickly. Productivity is low because of the very many challenges we have in the farms. Either the farmers are using seeds that are not very superior, seeds that are inferior. They're using methods that they have used over a long period of time. They are saving their seeds, so they plant these over and over. without much improvement. What that means is the yields will remain at that level, low. And so our farmers will be remaining at that subsistence. We almost say that they are living below life. When you compare that with what is happening in the North Americas, Europe, and Canada, the difference is like black and white. The food security situation is way above what you'd call the global norm. People have more food than they need. People have more nutritious foods. And so when you come to Africa, where the needs are strongest, there's a very strong justification why we should have these technologies in Africa. And yet, a lot of voices we hear cautioning Africa about not using technology are coming from the same places where people are well fed. So this is a comparison between a livelihood and a lifestyle. Lifestyle, you can feed organic, you can feed GM, you can feed any type. You have a choice. And this is what we'd like the global community to also allow Africa to have that choice and let the technology be available. In any case, the technology becoming available does not replace other traditional methods of farming. Those who still want to grow organic can still do it, and there's a market for it. But I can assure you, the market for organic foods will be more in the Americas and Europe, who can afford the cost, than in Africa.
And I want to ask you, I'm glad you brought up the sort of the dichotomy between organic and GM, because, for example, we were on a facility yesterday with Calro, and we saw just the first sort of research plots of genetically modified cassava, right? To be resistant against mosaic.
Yeah.
Now, the part that I'm having trouble rationalizing is that if you gave that cassava to a farmer and he grew it, would it not be organic? I mean,
that's the other big challenge that we have with the poor or misinformation about what is really organic and what is not. Because organic farming means you reduce the amount of chemical use in your farm. That is exactly what biotechnology and GM technology does. It reduces the amount of chemicals that you spray. For example, if you're talking about insect resistant, you are talking about reducing the amount of chemical sprays for a crop like cotton from about 8 to 2. That means that you're actually going towards organic. So organic foods, biotechnology also helps the organic farmer, because the organic farmer then gets a seed that is more friendly to his practice and his beliefs. Now, when it comes to other crops, the same has been happening. Organically grown food may not necessarily be as free of other pathogens or other harmful bacteria as you'd have in genetically modified crops. Why? Because organic crops are never quite subjected to the food safety assessment rigor that GM crops are subjected to. In fact, I would almost say that GM crops are much safer than organic crops from a scientific perspective, because we know exactly what is in a GM crop, but we don't really know what is exactly in an organic product.
Now, based on that dichotomy, I've asked this question to many of the researchers we've talked to, and I'm curious to see what you think of it. Can you think of a better word than organic to define that ideal? Because what you're saying is, well, if this is organic, then the natural comparison would be that, well, anything that doesn't fall under organic is inorganic. So it's a science term that's been brought into an emotional context. Would there be a better word to label organic production than the word organic?
Okay, one I think also is also romantic to say, I'm an organic farmer, I eat organic, but when you look at the basic idea of organic farming is really reducing the amount of external inputs that you use in your agriculture. This is precisely what GM technology does. It reduces the amount of external inputs that you use for your crop. And so I would say that maybe for better understanding of the bigger, wider population, it might just be better to say that organic foods actually foods that have been grown with less external inputs, just like GM foods.
See, this is so funny how this is happening, because what we're realizing is that the only thing actually dividing these two ideals is the language that we're
Is the
using.
terminology.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if we started a conversation about you and I based on the fact that if the first thing we arrived at was that you're Kenyan and I'm Canadian, then from there everything else we talk about is how we are different.
Yeah.
Versus that, we both live on planet Earth, and we both eat food every 8 hours to live, and we both love our children, and it's so. This is what the point of our film is to try to unify these two sides that in reality are not at all mutually exclusive. So I'm wondering if you could help outline for our audience, what are the things, rather than talking about the differences, what are the things that an organic process and genetically modified seed have in common or can do similarly?
We can first think about what is necessary to provide a growing population with the food security, or to ensure food security. First, you need safe food. So what we need first and foremost is to ensure both organic, or what you'd call conventionally grown foods or traditionally grown foods, are safe, and they are as safe as genetically modified foods. And what has been proven, at least for GM foods, is that they are safe. They are safe, or as safe as conventionally grown foods, because the only thing you do, as I've said, is to reduce the amount of external inputs that you put when growing. Now, when it comes to differentiating between organic and GM, as long as it's food that has nutritional components as would be standard in any food safety or food standard regulation, then there should not be a concern that you're eating a GM food and I'm eating organic. So food should have some basic standards. It should be safe. It should have the nutritional components that have been recommended globally, because the nutrients I need here in Kenya are the same nutrients that you need in Canada. So we are looking at food that is nutritious, food that can store longer, food that has gone through the various processes of ensuring that it has the right composition, that it has as little of any other anti-nutritious elements as possible. So basically, I wouldn't say there's any difference really between when you say organic or GM. You should look at food in a more basic way of why we want to have the food. We want to provide you with energy. If GM provides you with energy and the non-GM provides you with energy, then there should not be a concern that this is, especially about the method that you use to bring up the seed. In fact, there are more harmful ways or more dangerous ways that have been used to bring in a safe product than you'd even think about genetic modification. So basically, I would say I would be more interested in food that has the basic nutritional components as has been recommended globally for the international community. It should not be for one part of the globe thinking that this is better than the other. Let's look at the composition of the food. Yeah.
So in Canada, I think one of our biggest issues currently in North America, really the developed world, is that abundance has allowed for a lack of perspective. Our abundance of food and our abundance of everything, we have everything we need. It's created created a big lack of perspective in that if I've never seen a bad disease in humans like measles or typhoid or anything like that, if I've never seen hunger,
Or you never slept hungry.
Yes, if you never slept hungry.
Yeah.
So
by lacking, not by choice, because you can choose to fast.
yeah.
Because you have too much and you want to give your body a break.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, right, is that in Canada and in North America, there's a really perceivable war on science in a way. You've got a very similar group who's anti-vaccine. They're against vaccinating their children.
Yeah.
We've had outbreaks of measles in Canada recently, and we haven't seen that in a very long time.
And in California, there is a part of a region where there has been an outbreak of polio. Can you imagine?
Polio in
imagine?
California because
Can you imagine?
parents are against the idea of
vaccination.
vaccinating.
Yeah.
Right? The same group is also against modified food, generally. What this arrives at for me, I've done a lot of thinking about this, and what the word I want to ask you about is unnatural. Okay? Because often an organic label falls onto a product that says, something about all natural or nature, or the connotation being that if it's organic, it's natural, and if it's not organic, it's unnatural. There's this idea that we were given everything we needed, and then, we screwed it up at some point with our own technology, and now we've created pollution and all of these problems. So that leads to the idea that scientists that work at improving the food supply through modifying are somehow doing something against nature. What are your thoughts on that?
One of the things that I really feel sad about is the very little understanding about how nature works. Because what we have today is not what we had 50 years. Even 50 could be going very far.
Yeah.
Nature has its way of modifying itself. And it is through this modification of nature naturally that scientists have actually been able to identify how nature works to that level where they now feel they can actually speed that process because of responding to an urgent need to feed a population, especially in Africa and developing countries, that is really starving. When you look at the Americas and Europe and Canada, what has made food abundant? It is science. There's nothing that you can go against. There's no country in this world that has ever reached food security status without using science at some level or the other. Now, when you come to Africa, again, you look at crops like even like sweet potato. Just very recently, in March, in April 2015, scientists have discovered that sweet potato is actually naturally genetically modified. What does that tell us?
What does that mean?
It means that even as we think that scientists are going against nature, nature itself is actually doing the modification for us so that crops that were not able to sustain themselves longer are now able to do that. So basically, there's very little understanding about nature and very little understanding about how the world was created. I feel sad again when I hear people saying that scientists are playing God. And I feel sorry because it means that that group of people with that kind of ideology have very limited understanding about God and creation. Because God was the biggest of geneticists.
Yeah.
You can imagine how he genetically modified everything here. And so really just trivializing that fact that scientists could be playing God is showing just how much ignorance we are in terms of how genetics work.
I just have to stop for a second. That's my favorite quote so far in all of the filming we've done. God was a great geneticist.
Oh, of course, yes.
Oh, he was a genetic engineer.
God is the biggest genetic engineer. So when people talk about playing God, they don't know what they're talking about because we have not reached an eighth of an inch of the knowledge and wisdom that God has kept for us. And so this is really just the baby steps of trying to understand how nature works, how genetics is composed, and then from that knowledge, you are able to really identify what it is, what characteristic you need in nature that can help you to speed the process of bringing better quality products for the population.
You know, and even that term, right, playing God. I'm thinking of when a child who's created in their parent's image, you know, watches their parent, you know, cook food. So a child plays kitchen. You know, they play pie or whatever they're doing. I mean, if we are playing, if we were playing with some of the same raw materials that God used, well, we were created in His image, were we not?
Exactly. And He gives us that wisdom. But of course, He doesn't reveal everything to us. You know, He gives little by little. You know, genetic engineering is just a very small component of the whole science and technology that God would want us to understand, I believe. Yeah. I'm a Christian. I believe that God is really the biggest and the perfect genetic engineer.
That's the best. That's just the best. I want to talk about that too, because just in the way that I've been doing a lot of research to sort of show people kind of the amount that even before biotechnology, sort of the amount that we have affected the abundance of food. I'm thinking of things like, you know, how corn and wheat and sorghum are all genetically related.
Yes.
I'm thinking about canola and cabbage and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. You know, in the beginning, when God created heaven and earth, He created some food for us, but from that point till now, how much have humans affected?
So much change. So, you know, both human and just nature. Because as the population increases, as climate changes, then you have some varieties and species that adapt better than others, and nature just eliminates them. And so when you talk about increasing the ability of the human beings to utilize the genetic resources that have been given to us by the Creator, then that means there's a purpose. Genetic engineering has a purpose in life. Not to play the Creator, but to enhance the way that we can do things better. We can do things better, and really, by enhancing livelihoods, then you're also helping in advancing God's creation. So advancements in food security has even prolonged the lifespan that would not have been able to by just relying on our own traditional methods. And so basically, I believe that natural and unnatural does not quite arise. Yeah, what it means is just a continuation of the natural process of engineering, and we are seeing more and more of that. There's nothing like playing God, really. I don't believe in that. No.
One of my mantras for this film, one of my quotes that I remember often because it keeps coming up for me is, it's never attribute to evil what could be explained by incompetence. Right?
Yeah, and ignorance.
Or ignorance. And that's you could change the word out. And although I personally get really frustrated with the anti-GMO crowd, and although the effects of their lobbying could be viewed in some capacity as evil, it's ignorance more often than not. And so I'm wondering, in a summation kind of way, what can we do as people in the know to help get rid of the ignorance?
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That I think it may even be wrong to label people as anti-technology, anti-GMOs, because when you go down to engage, you find that it is really fears that are based on lack of understanding of, for example, the whole process of incorporating some genetic material in another plant. Secondly, the problems of just people wanting to protect or maintain a status quo. I find that quite often. For example, when people say that, farmers in Africa save their seeds, so, you should not bring in new seeds because it will erode that tradition. But it doesn't, because saving of seed is good. But look at what has been happening over time. Farmers have always saved their seeds in Africa. But what has been the food security situation? Then you are saying that it has remained low. Yeah. And so when we talk about not accessing technology for farmers because of that attribute, it means we are saying that farmers should be condemned to that subsistence level. And I say really it's unfortunate, because we want our farmers to be challenged to see the new ways of doing things, because everywhere in the world, when you wake up in the morning, you want to do something better than you did yesterday. So if you're saving seed and it has only given you food for the family, maybe for a certain period of time, you'd like to now get that farmer to grow for the family and get some surplus to sell to improve his or her living conditions. So basically, I would say that we need to educate, we need to engage our people, we need to stop labeling people as anti, just try to understand exactly what is their point of discomfort with the technology. Is it by the process? Is it the fear of abandoning other methods? And just to assure them that GM technology is a tool within the toolbox of farmers. And once it becomes available, farmers will have another additional choice. Maybe it could be a better choice for farmers who want to use the technology, but those who want to use organic or those who want to use other methods will still continue, because this is not a system of farming. It's a tool that becomes available. Just like we have computers, we have Dell, we have Toshiba, we have many other different types. When you go to the marketplace to buy seed, then you have an opportunity to either buy the one that has been genetically enhanced or one that is traditional. And by the way, when it comes to saving of seed, scientists use different methods of transforming crops. You'll find that there are those that farmers will still continue using anyway, whether they are genetically modified seeds or not, because that is the nature of that seed system. We also need to improve our seed system to ensure that farmers are able to access the seeds that they need for the different geographical areas. Another intervention would just be to ensure that the biosafety process in the different countries is highlighted more and more, so that those who are fearful that the technology may not be fully tested, they are aware that the biosafety processes are there to help and to ensure that whatever crop comes to the farmers is actually safe. So awareness creation in general is very important. We need to use methods to create awareness that are compatible or that are acceptable to different communities. There are communities that would not like a stranger or maybe somebody they don't know to come and talk to them. Maybe that's just what we need to help in eliminating the fears that farmers have. So different methods of engaging, different approaches that should be used to create awareness, and basically also ensure that education about genetics is fully incorporated in our education system. Because when you have kids, young people that understand the process, they'll also be able to reach out to their parents, they'll be able to reach out to the communities, and by, you find people fearing less and less, because the fear of what they think would be an unknown, where they cannot see, because you cannot see at the molecular level, what you can't see with the naked eye, you have some fears. But if the young people are the ones who are also helping educate their communities, that would be a big plus. The mass media, we really need to do something about the media, because the mass media are like the eyes of society. And so we need to also ensure that we have journalists and reporters, editors who have some basic understanding of how genetics works, so that when you get stories in the media, then they're not turned around into scary forms and using some kind of illustrations that depict GM technology as, unsafe or as demonic. So basically, there's an array of ways in which we can intervene in this field of drowning. People are almost drowning with a lot of misinformation. We need to get people out of that by engaging step by step and ensuring that they get the right information.
My very last question is, again, I'm firmly convinced that most people don't mean to do badly, right? Most people genuinely want to do good for the people around them.
Yeah.
And I look at Africa, and I've had it pointed out by many people that if you look at NGOs, right, some operate very well and do a lot of good.
Yeah.
Some not so much.
Yeah.
As an African talking to a North American, what should North Americans do to help Africa, and what should North Americans not do to help Africa?
Okay, maybe we can start with the don'ts.
Yeah, don't. What should we not do?
Yeah, I think one of the things that people from the West really need not to do is to be prescriptive, to prescribe what is good for Africa. I think what Africa wants to do is to just we want to understand the systems well and learn from the mistakes of North America and Europe and others. We may not, but I think basically by prescribing what Africa should or should not do, that is really the wrong approach. What we need to do is to partner together. Let us be more, let North Americans and others, expose the positive things that have made them be food abundant. Then from there, Africa will be in a position to choose from those, so that at least they make their own choices, they make their own decisions based on the available knowledge and information. I think the fact that North Americans and others have pioneered this technology is a good thing, and a do thing for North America is really to ensure that they are also supporting the initiatives that are happening in Africa, especially from the public sector institutions that are struggling. Scientists are struggling. Young people want to become geneticists. Support that. Make sure that they are exposed to some of the state-of-the-art facilities in the north. And that way, then we'll be able to come up to some level of comfort with each other. Now, the second thing, another don't, is really funding organizations whose motive is really to derail Africa's development. I think we have seen, when you look at some of the objectives of some of the NGOs around, they even have statements to say that, we don't support this, we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't support technology-based agriculture, we support organic-based. But when you look at the market for organic produce, it's really so small. And then again, it will still be dictated by those who have the money. So dictating to farmers in Africa that, you want to remain traditional, you should remain organic, you should remain... I think those are really don'ts for the North America. As far as Africa is concerned, I think here we need also governments to come in to support, to provide the political goodwill for innovations, not just GM technology, because as I have said, this is just one of the many, many tools that can be used to improve agriculture. We need irrigation systems, we need marketing, we need value addition. All these need to be integrated as a one component that has most of the attributes that will improve agriculture in Africa. And the African governments, African people need to take more of the leadership positions now. The world is open for knowledge sharing. The world is open for technology transfer. The world is open for communications. And so we need to utilize those opportunities that the globalization has used. Instead of demonizing globalization, let's see how best we fit into that global space. Because I believe that Africa is the final frontier as far as technology is concerned, not just in agriculture. We have seen what ICTs have done. We have seen what other technologies have done. And this gives, really encouragement to all of us who are in the technology field that Africa is ripe Africa is ripe for growth, and we need all the encouragement and support from all other global players.
Margaret, thank you so much for your time today. Wonderful.
Oh,
Oh, you did it. That was wonderful.
oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, of course,
That was great. Wonderful
Really?
job. I think I want to make t-shirts that say God is a genetic engineer. Hey, if you're still here, thank you so much. I hope you appreciated this. It felt a little long to me, but if you're still here, great. I wonder if you'd consider supporting our work with a recurring donation through Patreon. Helps me keep the lights on around here and helps me continue to be able to produce great content. There's a button somewhere around here that'll take you right there. Thanks for watching.